All right, so do you ever feel like you're just shouting into the void online? You post something, you wait, you refresh obsessively, but your social media, blog posts, videos are just seemingly ignored by people and the algorithmic gods. Well, today we're going to fix that. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly why your content isn't getting engagement and clicks. And more importantly, I'm going to show you how to fix it. And definitely stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to share the one trick that the biggest creators use and that most people seem to completely ignore. Now, I'm going to break this video down into 6 key content mistakes. I'm going to go through each of these and how you can spot them in your content, whether it's social media, blog posts, videos, podcasts, whatever it might be. I'm going to show you how to fix them, and I'm going to give you examples of creators who do a really good job, which will be great kind of food for thought and inspiration. All right? The first one is that you've got a weak hook. Now, what is a hook? A hook is basically a single line of text, typically the title of a YouTube video, or it's the headline of a blog post, or it's the first line of a social media message. It's a single line of text, mic is falling down, that is designed to evoke some kind of curiosity. So you're curious about what it is, and therefore you consume the content. Now, an example of a creator who does an amazing job with this is Mr. Beast, right? This is one of his videos that came out recently. And the hook is this, it's the title, right? $1 to $500,000 experiences. Now, I don't know about you, but I think to myself, well, what is the $500,000 experience? Is it some kind of crazy private jet thing or a yacht thing or some super rich paintball game? But also, what's the $1 experience and why are you comparing these? Surely the $1 one is obviously worse. Now I'm kind of getting curious about this and click, I watch the video, right? So that's the purpose of the hook. Now, the problem with most people when they put content out there is that they don't actually create hooks. They're just very matter of fact. Let's say somebody does a comparison of various cameras. They'll say, my favorite cameras will be the title, as opposed to having something that evokes a bit more curiosity. Like imagine if Mr. Beast here had taken that approach and just said, you know, 2 experiences compared, or my favorite experiences, you'd never click on the video, okay? So when you're thinking about how to make a more compelling hook, the most important thing you need to focus on is that it needs to be short and it needs to evoke curiosity. It's going to make somebody think, what's that all about, right? And there's loads of ways in which you can do this. You could have a bold claim. You could share a statistic. You might share something kind of unusual that happened. You might ask an interesting question. The point here is that a lot of people go and create the content and then they think about the title or the headline as just kind of an afterthought. But what you really want to do is start with the title and the headline and then construct the content based upon what really hooks people, okay? Now, you might be worried about clickbait. Like the internet's full of clickbait. It sucks. We all think it sucks. But what clickbait is it's where the hook does not marry up with the actual material that you deliver, right? So if we look at Mr. Beast's video here, I've not watched this video, but I can almost guarantee you that it will deliver on the promise of a $1 versus $500,000 experience. If, you know, his video had $1 versus $25 experience, then it would suck and no one would ever watch his videos. That would be clickbait, right? So don't worry about clickbait, so long as you follow through on the promise, okay? Now, if you're new around here, by the way, my name is Jono. I've helped hundreds of companies and thousands of people build amazing audiences and fans and community engagement with less hassle and better results. Now let's move on to our second key content mistake. And this one is that you don't have enough value, right? So the problem with, you know, social media and YouTube and podcasts and blogging being so easy and readily accessible is that it's super tempting to just put a lot of content out there and think that, you know, volume is what it's all about. And that's not the way to do it. It's better to have less content out there that's really good than more content that just kind of sucks, okay? Now, let's start with what we want to kind of get to. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of some really good content, right? This one is by a friend of mine, this guy called Martin Mikos. He's been a CEO for a number of different very successful companies. He's a great guy, very experienced of being a leader of a company. And he put this little post out 4 hours ago, and it just says, how to become a successful startup founder. Now, that in itself evokes some curiosity if you're a founder, because you know Martin knows what he's doing. So I'm like, oh, well, I want to be a successful startup founder. So I go and read these different points, right? Great content, you know, just super practical. Another great example here is HubSpot. Let me get rid of this thing. The psychology of short form content, why we love bite-sized videos, right? And there's just a really useful bit of content in here about bite-sized videos. Again, it's got a great hook. Like, what is the psychology of short form content? Oh, do I get to understand the human blueprint about why people like this kind of content? Maybe that'll give me an advantage. I'll check it out, right? So the key thing here is to really focus on high value. Don't just put garbage out there. Now, you might be thinking, but how do I know what I should do? Like, what kind of content I should put out there? Well, the good news is that there's kind of 3 things to consider. The first one is, what does your audience fear losing, right? This is called loss aversion, right? And it's proven to attract people's interest. It was actually studied in 1979. So if your audience is worried about losing data or money or reputation or, agency, right? If you can put content out there that helps them, they're going to be very attracted to that. The second is pain resolution, right? So this is what sucks about their life and how can you give them a quick win to helping them to fix it, right? Arguably, that's what Martin's does. It's hard to be a startup founder. And he's saying these are the things that you can do to be successful, right? How to make it less painful. And then the third one is gains, right? These are kind of the things that people aspire to and that they want to accomplish. But I'd start, honestly, with loss aversion and pain resolution, first of all. Those are the things that are going to be most compelling to people, okay? All right, so let me go over here. Let me move my mouse and go to my notes, because what I need to do right now, it says it on my notes, is I need to tell you something very important, is that if you like this video, it really helps my channel out a lot. This is a small YouTube channel. I'm trying to do my best by putting useful content out there, but if liking this video really helps my videos to get noticed. And if you were to throw a sub on the channel, well, that would be just absolutely amazing, okay? All right, so let's go to our third one here. And the third one we're going to focus on here is posting and ghosting. Now, what is this? This is actually a really simple and quick one that we can actually go through here. Posting and ghosting is basically when you post something online. It could be a social media post particularly, or it could be a YouTube video or whatever. Somebody goes and responds to your piece of content and you ignore them. You don't respond to them, right? And it is one of the simplest things to fix. But so many people do this, right? So the moral of the story is really simple here. So what you want to do is you want to implement something that I call the awkward small talk pattern. This is something we teach our customers in the community leadership core, and how they work with communities, but also how they do content as well. So what is the awkward small talk pattern? It's really simple. Let's say you put a social media post out, right? Somebody goes and responds to your post. The awkward small talk pattern says you always like it and you always respond. So let's say you put a post out saying, hey, here's my awesome camera review video. And somebody replies and they say, well, I thought it was interesting that you didn't like this particular lens. I think it's really great. You like their comment and then you reply to them and you say, oh, so tell me a little bit about why you like it, right? Now what you're doing is you encourage them to post again. So they reply to you and they say, well, I like it for these particular reasons. And then you say, oh, I thought your second reason was interesting, but I think this. And what you do is you keep the conversation going and going and going, right? This is why I call it the awkward small talk pattern. If you keep the conversation going as long as you can without it being weird, you're going to get more replies and your content's going to perform better, right? Do this in every single medium, especially do it in YouTube videos, for example, right? Every single comment that ever appears on my channel, I generally try to reply to, okay? Super important. All right, now let's go on to our fourth content mistake here. And this is around bad thumbs and titles. Now, this does not just specifically apply to YouTube, but what I mean by this is that let's go back to Mr. Beast, okay? This is his main channel, right? Now, when we scroll down and we take a look at his thumbnails and his titles, you'll notice that they just feel very professional and very compelling. Like, look at this one as an example. 7 days exploring an underground city. Now, that evokes curiosity, right? That is an amazing hook right there, okay? But then look at this title. It kind of looks like a little Indiana Jones adventure-like. Look at this one. I helped 2,000 people walk again, right? You can see him here. You can see all these people over here who clearly have kind of artificial limbs. right? It's the combination of the thumbnail and the title makes you want to click, right? And this is what this is all about. Now, I'm going to compare Mr. Beast, and I don't mean to pick on the Big Vision coach. I'd never heard of this lady until I looked her up, until I was browsing through YouTube. But let's compare her thumbnails and titles to Mr. Beast's, right? Let's just compare these. Look at these, and then look at hers, right? This one is kind of difficult to read. There's all kinds of text. It's, daily one command, Friday commanding cash-a-thon, virtual commanding wealth replay. Like, it's just not that interesting. And again, I don't mean to pick on this lady. This is very common on YouTube, right? But the combination of the thumbnail and the title is everything. If you don't have it work in tandem, then what's going to happen is people are just not going to click. And this does not just apply to YouTube. This absolutely applies to blog posts, for example. You'll typically have a big image at the top of a blog post. And then, you'll have the headline of the blog post. It absolutely applies to social media. Like the vast majority of your social media posts should have images on them. So the combination of the image with what you write in the social media. So it's the combination of them is absolutely critical here. So what should you do? Okay. Well, the first thing is to really focus on contrast. Fundamentally, what we're trying to do is stop the scroll. So when someone's scrolling through YouTube or they're scrolling through social media, the image, the thumbnail is going to capture their attention first. If it's high contrast, like white text on a black background or black text on a white background or a bright picture of somebody's face, if there's high levels of contrast, they're much more likely to stop the scroll and then they'll read the title or they'll read the content, right? That is the most fundamental thing that you absolutely need to do here, right? The other thing as well is to just be creative, right? Again, if I go back to Mr. Beast, his titles are really, creative, right? Like, look at this one. You might think to yourself, but I can't create a thumbnail like this. But you can create something really compelling in using tools like Canva. It's not that expensive to be able to do something really impressive. And also, if you've got a little bit of budget, you can hire people on Fiverr. I'm going to write this down here. Fiverr is an amazing kind of directory of gig workers. Amazing people who will be able to go and create thumbnails for you. Sometimes they're as cheap as like $5 or $10 a piece. Okay. So, high contrast, be super creative, and this is going to massively help your content, okay? So this is absolutely critical. Now, if you want to build amazing online engagement, whether it's building a fan base, building an audience, building a community, you should absolutely check out our Community Leadership Core. Kind of like a personal trainer for companies and organizations who want to build better audiences. We help you to figure out what work's going to have the biggest impact. We help you to refine and dial in that work, make it super efficient and effective, and we hold you accountable. We check in and make sure that things are moving in the right direction. So go check out the link in the video description to find out more. All right, so let's now go on to our fifth one here. And this is that your content is not shareable. Right? And what I mean by this is that people stumble on your content and then there's no real reason for them to share it, right? They just look at it and they're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But you've got to give them a reason to share it. And the first reason is if it seems like it has utility in the world, if it's useful, right, then people are likely to share it. And also, if you ask them to share it, they're likely to share it. Now, you can't really ask people to share things very easily on things like blog posts and on social media, right? You can, but it's kind of a little cliched. So what you want to do with blog posts and social media is to just deliver really great content. So let me give you an example. Let me go back to my other screen over here of a post from Olama, right? So, there was some news recently about, there's been lots of news about OpenAI recently as I record this video. And Sam Altman, said in here, yes, we're discussing. I personally think that we've been on the wrong side of history here and need to figure out a different open source strategy. These folks, Olama, who are very open source, I won't kind of fill you in on what this is because this is not a video about AI, but they basically help people to deploy AI. They said, Olama's here ready to help. Give us the word, Sam. Let's make the world a better place, right? So this is kind of like relevant to recent news. It's a little cheeky. And look, it got 300 retweets, right? Which is great for a channel that has got, how many? 77,000 followers, right? So that's pretty cool. Another example, well, there's all kinds of examples in here, but why don't I pull up, I think I actually shut it down. Let me pull up another example of really shareable content that I actually closed the tab on earlier on. And this is going to be resolve.ai. So look at this pinned video at the top, right? Here's to the developers. It's just this really kind of quirky, fun video. And look at all these retweets down here, right? And they've got 1,200 followers, right? But they create something that's different, it's entertaining, it's fun. It's just a really cool thing for people to share, right? So again, make sure that there is some level of utility, or it is amusing, or it's interesting, or it kind of evokes, a reaction. And then also ask people to share things as well. So earlier on, for example, I asked you to like the video, but I didn't say, please like and subscribe to the video. I tried to do it in a more human way. I said, look, likes really have a huge impact on channels like this. Like, this is true. Like, I have a small YouTube channel, right? I'm not Mr. Beast. So, when you like my video, it really helps a lot. It helps a ton, right? So a really authentic ask is also a really effective way of getting people to share your content. And when your content's shared, then the algorithms get triggered, and that's how your content gets a high level of visibility. All right? Okay. Now, I also kind of want to go onto onto our final one here, and then I do want to share this one trick that I mentioned at the video that's really important for us to talk about. But the sixth of our main content mistakes, before I get to this kind of bonus that I'll put down here. But this is if your content has got no emotional pull, your content has got to trigger some kind of emotion in people. What's interesting about human beings, I've been building audiences and fans and communities now for about 27 years. And if there's one thing that I've learned, is that my mic is going all over the place. There's one thing that I've learned is that we make decisions emotionally, right? We decide, the people we like, the products that we like, the things we're going to buy, the communities we're going to join emotionally. And then we justify it with logic, right? So if you're only giving people logic, and LinkedIn is full of this stuff, right? It's very boring, logical stuff, then it doesn't excite us, and we don't want to share that with other people. But when something amuses us or captivates our interest in some capacity, or we feel an emotional connection to that organization, to that company, then we're much more compelled to kind of engage with that particular content. So, let me go back to this. This little video, for example, from Resolve, this in itself kind of has an emotional pull. It's kind of funny, it's slightly inspiring, it's interesting, it's quirky, and therefore people are interested in sharing it. Another example here is Rory Sutherland. I absolutely love Rory Sutherland. He is an amazing writer on behavioral economics, and you should absolutely go and check out his work. The first thing you should check out are his TED Talks. Absolutely phenomenal. But the way he writes is in a very natural way that really builds kind of a, the reason why people like Rory Sutherland is not just because he's got interesting things to say, but the way he says it, the way he engages is so authentic and so interesting. Like this one, this is interesting. One of the best attested boosters of productivity, a large screen or multiple screens. When we see people working on mobile phones, perhaps we should see them as time wasters rather than industrious and committed workers, right? It's a little cheeky kind of poke at everyone sat there on their phones, right? But again, it adds a layer of kind of emotion to the mix, right? So that emotion can come in many different forms. It can be funny, it can be edgy, it can be challenging, the norm. There's all different kinds of ways you can do this, right? So just to kind of recap real quick, right? Make sure you don't have a weak hook. Make sure your hook is strong. It evokes some kind of curiosity. Make sure your content has got value, that it's interesting, that it solves, loss aversion or pain resolution, or helps someone to gain something interesting. Always respond when people respond to your content. Use our awkward small talk pattern. Just like everything, and then always keep the conversation going. Make sure that you focus on having great thumbnails and titles. On your social media, on your YouTube videos, on your blog posts, always have really high contrast images that are creative and interesting. You can go to Fiverr if you need help with that. Make sure that your content is really shareable. Like, ask people to share your content, but make it useful and curiosity engaging enough that they'll want to share it themselves. And then make sure that it's got some level of emotional pull. It's funny, it's challenging, it's edgy. It's something that's really going to be interesting, okay? Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, and this is the bonus here, is to always keep them watching. Now, what do I mean by this? What do I mean by always keep them watching? When you put a piece of content out there, what's really important is that when they consume that content is you tell them what's next, right? And you're going to see an example of this in just a moment, because I'm going to do this in this YouTube video, okay? I'm going to tell you exactly what the next step should be here, right? But let's say somebody listens to a podcast. When you get to the end of the podcast, you should say, oh, if you found this podcast interesting, you should go and listen to that other podcast, right? Another example of this would be if you have a series of social media posts about, let's say you've got a longer social media post, like an article on LinkedIn, something like that. At the end of that article, you might want to say, oh, and go and check out this thing next. If you're sending emails out to people and you have an email on a particular topic, you should link to another email that's on a similar topic that will excite people as well. So what's really critical about all of this is that you're always trying to keep them watching. You're always trying to keep them moving forward, right? So I'm going to give you an example of this right now, because if you go and check out this video, I'm going to talk to you about progress over perfection, right? Progress over perfection is essentially not getting wrapped up in all of this stuff, right? What we want to do is we always want to be just making small changes, small wins every step of the way. If you go watch this video next, I'm going to walk through exactly how to do that. I think you'll find it super helpful, and I'll see you there.